is my pleasure to welcome you to the Little Rock Sustainability Hour, brought to you by the Little Rock Sustainability Commission. Today we will discuss sustainability in and around Little Rock. Our goal is to educate and inform you on how we can all become better stewards of the community and city we live in.
Hi everyone, welcome once again to the Little Rock Sustainability Hour. I am your host, Karen Zuccardi. It is my pleasure to have you with us this evening. This show is brought to you by the Little Rock Sustainability Commission in collaboration with the Little Rock Sustainability Office. In every show, we bring you relevant information to help you connect the dots between our life choices and our future. The purpose is to inform, educate, and get you thinking about sustainability. Today, we are going to talk about trash. So let's talk trash and the impact that consumption and waste have on your wallet, your family, and your community. But first, what exactly is the Sustainability Commission? The Commission is a group of volunteer citizens who help the city become a better place to live today while preserving our natural resources for the future. The Commission is composed of 5 working teams: energy, education and community outreach, transportation, waste and reduction, and environment, health and wellness. Each team meets every month to discuss their specific subjects in more depth, and residents of Little Rock are encouraged to attend these meetings to provide insight to the team members. Your ideas and input are important. The commissioners, in return, bring these ideas to our monthly commission meetings for further discussion. Ultimately, the commissions work with the appropriate city officials to improve our city. We are volunteer citizens in action. Please follow us on social media where we share valuable information for the Little Rock community. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at SustainLR. You can also hashtag LRSH, LRSC, SustainLR, one word, and UniteLR. You can reach out to the city's sustainability office directly at recycle@littlerock.gov. Now, let's welcome our beautiful Latino community. Hola, querida comunidad latina. Muchas gracias por sintonizar una vez más la hora de sostenibilidad aquí en la ciudad de Little Rock. Yo soy Karen Zuccardi y hoy vamos a hablar de un tema que a lo mejor ya varios de ustedes analizan de una manera regular. Hoy vamos a hablar de nuestro consumo en exceso y el impacto que esto tiene en nuestros bolsillos, en nuestra familia y en nuestra sociedad. Before we get started, let's define some terms that you will hear throughout the show. The first one is landfill. A landfill site is an area of land that is used to dump rubbish or trash, either directly on the ground, this is called land raising, or filling an unwanted hole in the ground, this is called landfilling. Single-use plastic. Single-use plastics are goods that are made primarily from petroleum and are meant to be disposed immediately after we use it. Often this is just like usually mere minutes. Single-use plastics are most commonly used for packaging and serviceware such as bottles, wrappers, straws, and bags. Methane. Landfill gas is a natural byproduct of the decomposition of organic material in landfills. Landfill gas is composed of roughly 50% methane and 50% carbon dioxide, that's CO2. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas, and it's usually between 28 and 36 times more potent than CO2 at trapping heat at the atmosphere in over a 100-year period. Ozone layer. A layer of ozone gas is in the upper atmosphere that prevents dangerous ultraviolet radiation from the sun from reaching out to the surface of of the Earth. Um, this layer is very important because this helps us keep the climate or have the climate as we have known about it historically. All right, so we are done with the terminology of the day. So let's get started. Do you know how much trash do you produce? Do you know what happens to your trash once you get rid of it? Maybe you recycle some of it. And what happens to the rest of it? Does it go to the landfill? Today, we will discuss these questions and many more. In America, excessive consumption has created a very serious problem that has a lots and lots of consequences. And that means also that we have created a lot of trash. Our consumption in excess, like out of control consumption, has created a lot of trash in our communities. In today's show, we will discuss the problem and consequences of all this. We will also give you ideas about how you can reduce the amount of trash that you create while at the same time helping you save money. Natural resources are continually extracted to produce goods that are used often only briefly before they are thrown into landfills or either incinerators or also into our natural environment. Our current system of consumption and disposal results in a great deal of waste and pollution. For example, we waste precious resources such as fossil fuels to make plastic bottles, and we produce pollution as those plastic bottles float down our rivers to the oceans. All this waste hit us close to home every day. When we waste food, we waste money. Buying things that we don't need also is a way of wasting our money. Disposing of things that we didn't need in the first place also wastes money. Excessive consumption and waste have environmental costs, including the depletion of natural resources. The production of goods result in a lot of damage to our environment. We have cut down already half of the forest in our planet and contaminated our air and oceans. Our resources are rapidly being depleted as we use the resources more quickly than Mother Nature can replace them. And what do we do with all of the goods that are made from natural resources? We clutter our homes, our yards, and our lives with all that stuff. Statistics on waste in the US are staggering. Here are some of the facts about our way of dealing with stuff that may prompt you to think a little differently about the way that we currently consume goods and the way that we dispose them. All right, so let me share with you some statistics. Did you know that the average American creates over 4 pounds of trash per day? Americans, we make up to roughly only 5% of the world's population, but we generate nearly 40% of the world's total waste. In a lifetime, the average American will leave a legacy of 90,000 pounds of trash for future generations. More often than not, we go about our lives without asking what impact our actions have on the environment and on our community. But it is important to discuss the environmental effects of our behavior. For instance, what happens to our trash once we put it at the curb? If you answered, it goes to the landfill, you are correct. Most of the stuff we throw away ends up in the landfill or in our local landfills, which, while serving a vital role in the disposal of our waste products, They also represent potentially serious environmental and financial risk to our communities. Food is the largest component of our landfills at about 24%. Plastic, especially food containers, accounts for 18%, and paperboard makes up about 12% of the landfill. Unfortunately, when these materials are mixed together in the landfill, harmful gases are created that affect our local air and also damage the ozone layer. What can we as citizens do to improve these numbers and reduce the consequences of our waste? A solution to our trash problem requires a paradigm shift in how we think about waste. Being aware of this problem is the first step. And then, once we understand the impact that our excessive consumption generates, we can begin to make the necessary changes in our behavior. One important thing we can do is to understand the 5 golden rules of waste management. Do you know what I'm talking about? The 5 R's are refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and then recycle. It is a little tricky to say all those R's, but what does that really mean? First, and the easiest of the 5 R's is refuse. For instance, refuse to bring stuff into your life that you didn't ask for in the first place, such as that extra plastic bag at the grocery store, or those, extra samples of food that you didn't ask or you didn't want at the grocery store. The second of the 5 golden rules is reduce. That means to reduce the amount of stuff that we buy. Think to yourself, do you really need that item before you buy it? Is there something else that you can, is this something that you can manage without? Also, you can ask yourself, do I really have something at home, or do I already have something at home that will serve the same purpose without buying another one? Can I borrow or rent rather than having to buy one on my own? The third R is reuse. That means making a conscious effort to ensure that any given item has more than one use. For example, reuse a plastic bottle you absolutely had to buy when you forgot to bring your own bottle of water from home, or passing along old baby clothes to the pregnant friend. The fourth R is repurpose. Repurposing means making a new product out of an old one. An example of this is making a baby blanket out of old clothes, or making a t-shirt quilt out of, you guessed it, t-shirts. The fifth and final of the five R's is recycle. While recycling is an option for some items, there is a good reason that this is the last R. It is much better for your pocket and for the environment to refuse than reduce, hopefully reuse, find a repurpose, to save, and finally, as the last resort, recycle. At the end of the show, we will share more important things about how you can become better steward of Mother Nature, so keep on listening.
Okay, so we have gotten to one of my favorite sections on the show, our roundtable discussion. I like this section because it is an opportunity for our members or members of our community to share ideas about issues we all care about. In today's discussion, we have 4 very great guests. Lenny Mazzanelli, the Recycling and Sustainability Program Educator for the City of Little Rock, is here to tell us about them. Hi, Lenny. Thank you for being with us again.
Hi, Karen. Our first guest is Susan Altrui. Susan is director of the Little Rock Zoo. In this role, Susan is ultimately responsible for the care and welfare of more than 500 animals at the zoo and for ensuring that the zoo maintains its accreditation with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. She guides the overall strategic vision for the zoo, including conservation education efforts, fundraising, marketing, and conservation initiatives to ensure the long-term survival of species in the wild. Susan holds an MA in speech communication from Colorado State University and a BA in the same from Arkansas State University. She was born and raised in Central Arkansas and is a current resident of Little Rock. Hi, Susan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Our second guest is Randy Pierce, a partner at Natural State Recycling, which was founded in 1921 and is the oldest and largest recycler in the state. Randy's been involved in recycling and sustainability for the last 15 years. He serves on the board of directors for the Arkansas Recycling Coalition and is a past president. He is a commissioner for the City of Little Rock Sustainability Commission and has served as chairman. Randy is a graduate of the University of Arkansas and executive MBA program at the University of Chicago. Hi, Randy. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Our third guest is Nathan Charles, who was born and raised in Little Rock. He obtained a civil engineering degree from the University of Arkansas, Fayetteville, and was hired directly after graduation by the City of Little Rock. For the past 15 years, he has worked in the Public Works Department as a civil and environmental engineer, and for the past year as the solid waste engineer. He is dedicated to providing essential garbage and yard waste collection services for the citizens of Little Rock, as well as ensuring the city's landfill follows all environmental regulation. Hello, Nathan. Welcome.
Hi, Lenny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our fourth guest is Reed Admire. Reed is the executive director at the Urban Food Loop, a local business that turns food scraps into finished compost that's packed full of soil-building nutrients. His company provides composting services for homes, businesses, and events located in Central Arkansas. He graduated in 2015 from his master's degree from the Clinton School of Public Service. Reed is also a trained chef and has worked on several organic farms. Hi, Reed. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Lenny. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Lenny. And hi, everyone. Welcome. We are very excited to have you on our show today. I want to start our conversation by asking all of you how you became interested in sustainability. Was there a specific moment in your life that prompted you to be interested in this subject? Susan, let's start with you.
Thanks so much. For me, I think it was learning about the impact of plastic on our environment. And for me, it's the impact that plastic has on animals. At the Little Rock Zoo, we're very interested in the conservation of animals, and plastic just has a very impactful and just devastating impact on animals. Right now, the impact, especially that plastic straws are having on animals, is just incredible. We're throwing away about 500 million straws every single day just from the United States. And those straws go into our waterways, they're working our way into our oceans, and it's estimated by the year 2050 that 99% of all seabird species are going to be ingesting plastic into their bodies. And it's just having a devastating effect on wildlife like seabirds and other animals that are in our ecosystem. Plastic is just something that we've got to start reducing the consumption on. We've got to start looking for alternatives to what we're using. And so for me, just learning about that devastating effect that plastic was having on our environment was something that moved me to want to do more about sustainability.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. What about you, Reed?
For me, it was really kind of an early fascination with the natural world, camping with my family, keeping a garden at home. We composted at home growing up. But then as I got into my teens and my early 20s, I had some health issues related to some sports injuries, a lot of inflammation and just different joint issues. And I tried all different kinds of therapies, chiropractic therapy, massage therapy, physical therapy, just about everything you could think of. And I finally started doing yoga and talked to a yoga teacher who is also kind of a nutritionist. And I really radically started to change my diet and saw the immediate health effects in my own body. And the more I kind of looked into, some of the things around growing your own food and organic and sustainable gardening and farming, I started to notice a lot more environmental impacts associated with certain things in that industry. And so that really got me thinking early on. My BA was actually in music. And so I was kind of on that path for a while until I was at the Clinton School, and I met Tom Vilsack, the Secretary of Agriculture for the U.S. government. And he had a list of stats, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little later, that were really alarming. And so that kind of turned me on to the whole sustainable agriculture path.
Great, how interesting. I am also a proud graduate from the Clinton School, so I share your passion as well.
Woo, woo.
Nathan, what about you?
Okay, well, I don't know if there's a specific moment in my life that prompted me my interest in sustainability, but I've always enjoyed spending my time in outdoors and nature, especially around water. A lot of time at Lake Ouachita and the Buffalo River, some of the cleanest water bodies we have in the state. So I always had a passion for the nature and for water quality. And of course, my parents, always try to teach me to do the right thing. So I guess I'd say that sustainability just kind of came naturally in my life.
All right. And Randy?
Yeah, mine was a green movement in my own household. And by that, I mean, we started a company and had to provide for a wife and 3 kids. So it was, at the time, it was a pure financial move. We started a company called Shred Smart, a document destruction company. And we had to take our paper that we shredded somewhere. And so back when there were phone books, we picked up a phone book and saw, look, Goldman Recycling, let's call them. And so lo and behold, I called them and they said, well, we'll buy your paper. I was like, wow, that's great. So fast forward about a year, and I actually asked the guy that owned it at the time, do you want to sell it? And he said yes, and we ended up buying it. And at that time, we were really it was starting to make a lot of sense of what the company was doing and looking at sustainable efforts. And we really decided at that point in time, let's jump in this thing and see what we can do to move the needle in Little Rock and in the state on sustainability with a lot of basic stuff, but a lot of basic stuff that really mattered.
Great. Those are great examples of how people can get excited or interested in sustainability, and not all of them have the same path, right? I find that fascinating. My next question is for Reed and Susan. We want to know a little bit about what are some sustainability issues related to organic waste. And when I talk about organic waste, or I say organic waste, I mean for example, the poop of our elephants in the zoo, and also food waste and food scrap, all that stuff. Reed, let's start with you.
All right. So I have a lot of information in my head about food, not as much about the poop, although I've been lucky enough to work at the zoo in their wonderful facility, and I'm sure Susan has some of that information. But with food waste, globally, over 30% of food produced for human consumption is wasted each year. In our country, in the U.S., 40% of food grown for consumption ends up in landfills. So if you look at the solid waste stream for a residential waste stream, after you separate out the recyclables, 60% of what is left in the residential waste stream is food waste. So the average American throws out 1.2 pounds of food a day, totaling almost 500 pounds a year. Mm-hmm. On a national scale, 33 tons of food waste is thrown in the landfill each year. And each ton translates to almost 4 times its own weight in greenhouse gas emissions. So when food breaks down in the landfill anaerobically, it produces methane, which is about 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of greenhouse gases. And then to compound all of that, at our current rate of soil degradation, according to agronomists, they estimate that Earth only has about 60 years left of topsoil. 40% of the entire world's agricultural land is classified as either degraded or seriously degraded, meaning that plants can't grow at all. So simply composting, everybody eats, everybody creates food waste, everybody has an opportunity to close this small gap. And so the urban food loop, we've been operating for 7 years, and we've diverted more than 2 million pounds of food scraps from the landfill, which is almost 8 million pounds or 4,000 tons of greenhouse gases. It's a little dent, but there's a lot that it can address.
Thank you, Reed. That was very important information. What about you, Susan?
Well, we do have a lot of poop around the zoo because we've got some big animals that produce some big numbers there when it comes to poop. So our elephants and our rhinos, we've been able to take that poop and compost it into reusable materials for a lot of our plants and some of the other grounds that we have around the zoo. And we also mix in some other things such as weeds, leaves, grass clippings, and things like that as well into that composted material. And it produces a very rich soil material that we can then put back out into the zoo. It's a way of doing some xeriscaping at the Little Rock Zoo. It's just really great stuff. It really can't be used, though, for a lot of vegetable gardening. And that's because some of the hay product that the elephants use, what the hay is produced with, we found out has a certain chemical on it that when it goes through the composting process, it still has some of that residue in it whenever it goes through the composting process, that it's not good for vegetables, but it's really good for grass and for other plant materials. So we have had to learn a lot along the way about the composting process and what we can and can't do, and some of our own limitations in that process. But composting is something that I think is really interesting for anyone to do, and something that's very accessible. You can do composting in your own backyard and have that available to you and accessible to you for your own plants and for your own area. And it's a very rich material that plants love. And we love talking about it at the Little Rock Zoo because, kids love poop. They love to talk about poop. So it's a great way for us to educate kids about sustainability, is to talk about poop and to talk about big elephant poop. Nothing grabs a kid's attention more than when you can talk about that. So we've been able to use that as an educational tool as well.
Great. And I am sure that a lot of grown-ups also enjoy the conversation of how you manage the poop of the elephants at the zoo.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that information, Susan. This question also is for you. Why is sustainability important to the Little Rock Zoo?
Well, I think for us, it all comes back to the animals and the environment that they live in. And for us, it's about that sustainable practice. We teach conserve, learn, and care at the Little Rock Zoo. And that mission of sustainability and conservation is woven into everything that we do. And we want to get better every single day at what we do for sustainability and for conservation. And so to be a zoo that's committed to conservation, you have to be a zoo that's committed to sustainability practices. I don't think that those two things can go along with one another. You can't say that you're committed to the conservation of wildlife without saying that you're not committed to sustainability practices. And so we've tried to make that a priority in what we do. And you have to start somewhere. And I think that that's important to remember, no matter who you are or what you're doing in this journey, is that just start somewhere. Is pick a project, pick something that you can do in this sustainability journey and say, this is the act that I'm going to take. And that's what we've done at the Little Rock Zoo. We started with some small projects, and then it's grown and grown and grown. And then we've been able to use that to talk about in our education mission and in what we do as a zoo. We do a lot with the conservation of wildlife with the species survival plan breeding programs that we do, but that's just not enough. We have to also be very cognizant about saving the wild places where these animals come from. Because if we're not actively educating the public about the wild places where this wildlife, this beautiful wildlife comes from, we're not going to have that wildlife here much longer. Right now we're in the middle of the 6th great extinction. It's underway right now, and we are losing species at a rate that is 100,000 times faster than before. And that's very scary because that extinction rate is happening because of human acts. It's not happening because of anything natural. It's because of what we're doing to our world. And we have the ability to slow that down and to try to turn it around. And if we can affect that kind of change with what we're doing at the Little Rock Zoo and by touching lives, and especially touching children's lives, then that's worth reaching out and doing every single day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. Reed, this question is for you. We talked a little bit about organic waste and what we do with it, but what is community composting and how is it different from municipal solid waste programs?
Oh, that's a great question, Karen. Thanks for asking. So I guess when we talk about community composting, it's kind of a new term, but it's popped up a lot over the past decade. In 2013, if you were to look up that term, you might find maybe a dozen organizations across the country. And fast forward to 2020, there's over 150 community compost organizations. And so kind of what defines a community composting organization or operation is that it's usually a small scale, decentralized network of community-driven solutions as opposed to one centralized location, often like the landfill would be, or perhaps natural state recycling. On those levels, that makes sense. But on, like Susan mentioned, people can compost in their own backyard. So we kind of tout a solution that would hopefully cover the whole community, thus community composting. So that includes curbside collection programs like the one that we offer, as well as community drop-off programs at community gardens, schools, churches. And then we offer community drop-off at our location as well. So much like Ace Glass in our community, we'll start to have this year different drop-offs where people can just bring their bucket of food scraps. The main difference really is that, like I said, it's a decentralized network as opposed to a centralized network. So the overarching theory is really, can we keep the food scraps in the zip code where they're generated? Ideally, Little Rock Parks and Recreation has a green space within a mile of every home. Can we work with those green spaces to create, better looking gardens and more bountiful vegetables and fruits while teaching people how to compost for themselves? Or if they don't want to, how can they, be sustainable and take it somewhere or get it picked up? So it's a big approach, and it really requires a lot of legwork and community buy-in, but we really see some results from it.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So Nathan, you are an expert on municipal waste programs. What does the city do to recycle some of the materials brought to the landfill?
All right, great question, Karen. Here at Solid Waste, one of the essential services we provide as a weekly service is the yard waste collection. So we collect yard waste from the 65,000 residents across the city. We bring all that material out here to our compost yard. We take the material, the grass clippings, the leaves, the small limbs, and the larger woody material. We collect all this and we send it through a grinder. We grind the material up. We have several uses for this. One of them is we have to cover our daily waste at the landfill. So this gives us an alternative to soil to cover the daily waste at the landfill, which is an excellent alternative for us. But also, obviously, we compost it. We have these large windrows that we develop, and we have these huge machines that help with the decomposition process. And so, yeah, we develop a lot of compost out here every year from recycling the yard waste, and we sell that back to the public. And also we grind the larger woody material to use as a mulch for a great use for a ground cover for your gardens and your landscape beds. So along with that, we also recycle the appliances that we pick up throughout the city. So you can call in and schedule a bulky item or appliance pickup. And this can be the refrigerators or washing machines, dishwashers. And so we also sell that for scrap metal and recycle those goods as well.
All right. Well, you all are doing a lot of great work for the city. Thank you so much. All right. So, Randy, this question is for you. We have heard from Reed about how the urban food loop recycles household food wastes. What does your company do, the natural state recycling? What happens to our recyclables once they leave our homes?
Yeah, so we're actually getting ready. This is our 99th year. It's hard to believe in operation. 2021 will be 100 years, and it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that somebody's been recycling for 100 years. But 99 years ago, when there was fine linen writing paper, the founders and the early owners of the company would actually go around Little Rock and pick up rags. They had a printing press. They would pull those fibers out and remake linen. They would make linen writing paper out of those rags that they were recycling. Over the years, we've really grown the business. About 97% of what we do is we get the good fortune to work with a lot of the major big businesses and industries, and even a lot of small businesses around the city, Pulaski County, and kind of the 4 counties surrounding area. We do a lot in paper and plastic recyclables. And we have our own fleet of trucks where we can pull big compactor boxes, big roll-off boxes. We'll bring all that material back to our facility where it'll go through a sorting process. So it'll get sorted out by paper grade. So whether it's cardboard or it's white paper or it's newspaper, it'll all get sorted out by grade of paper. The same thing with plastic. We do have a drop-off, so residents can drop off at our facility if they want. And we do get a lot of folks that want to make their way out to the Riverport to drop stuff off. What happens to it after it leaves our homes and businesses? Cardboard is the most recyclable product there is. And it goes, we've got the good fortune to have some very good close mills cardboard mills, one in Morrilton. We send a lot of that paper to Morrilton, so we'll sort it, make sure it's all clean and good, and it'll go up to Morrilton. And guess what? It gets made right back into cardboard to be reused again and then be recycled again. Newspaper is a dying breed. Unfortunately, I love the Democrat Gazette. We recycle a lot of newspaper, and most of that goes to insulation. So it'll go to an insulation mill where they'll de-ink it and turn it into insulation. Susan led off with her piece on plastic. Plastic is a hard one to work with. We do a lot of PET water bottles, stuff like buckets, HDPE buckets, those type of things. And we've got good homes for those. They actually go back and get remade into water bottles and buckets all over again. As Susan said earlier, there is a huge glut of plastic. The bad thing about plastic right now, it's a direct in correlation with the oil and gas market. So as oil goes, so does plastic, and from a recycle standpoint. So if a barrel of crude oil is pretty cheap, it's cheaper for plastic manufacturers to use virgin plastic than to use recycled. So that only leads to the further leads to the problem that Susan mentioned when we let off the program. So almost everything we do gets recycled from our standpoint at Natural State Recycling.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Randy. Nathan, I want to go back to you for a second. So let's say for some reason, there are missed pickups. So how can citizens request solid waste services, and how can we report missed pickups?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so 311 is the number to call. That's the city's service request number. So you can call 311 to schedule any of the services the solid waste department provides. Also to report any kind of missed pickups. If your garbage gets missed or your yard waste gets missed, you can call 311 and let them know about that. Then that's the best way to report that to us, and then we can get that rescheduled to get picked up. But I would like to take the opportunity to talk about some of the services that we provide, along with the weekly garbage and yard waste collection. We also provide a bulky item pickup. Mm-hmm. So any kind of material that is too large to fit into your standard garbage container, you can call 311 and schedule a bulky item pickup. The first pickup is free for the year. We do charge for each additional pickup, and that's $25 for the additional pickup, and we charge about $10 extra per cubic yard above that. Some examples of stuff we pick up are furniture, appliances, and mattresses. So that is a great program. One other thing we offer is the roll-off dumpster program. Individuals are allowed 1 free roll-off dumpster per year, and neighborhood associations are allowed 8 roll-off dumpsters per year. So this is just another effort to help keep the community clean. Other than that, we offer mosquito spraying. That's done from the fall to the spring. Obviously, we have a lot of mosquitoes here in the city, so we partner with the University of Arkansas Little Rock to help identify the type, the number, and the location of the mosquitoes so we can try to, concentrate our efforts. And other than that, we also provide a dead animal disposal. So anytime an animal gets killed in city streets, we'll pick that up. Or if an animal dies on private property, you can call us and we'll come pick that up also.
Wonderful. All right. Well, on this one, I am a little curious, Nathan. How does the city comply with environmental regulations associated with landfill?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand a lot of the engineering that's involved in modern landfills as far as just the daily operation that goes on out here. So I would like to take this opportunity to tell you kind of how we protect the environment, how we protect the air quality and the water quality. So quick history lesson. Back in 1976, the House of Representatives, they passed the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. And that requires standards for all sanitary landfills and required all open dump sites to be either closed or upgraded. So it's an exciting time here at the city landfill because we just now built a new landfill cell. It's about a 10-acre area that we're currently placing the trash. And so unlike the old dump sites, these are, like I said, these are highly engineered cells. And so they're built with impervious layers of clay and plastic that help prevent the liquid from within the cell from exiting or leaving. It also helps prevent the groundwater from entering the cell. So the liquid that we collect within the cell, that's all pumped to the city's sanitary sewer system for treatment. The groundwater from underneath the cell, we also pump that down to ensure that the groundwater does not rise up into the waste mass. We test this groundwater and the surface water runoff under several state DEQ permits to ensure that we have no polluted waters leaving the site. So that's water quality. I'll touch real quick on air quality. After the landfill cells are filled with waste, we cover the cells in a similar way that we construct the bottom liners of the cell with impervious layers of clay and plastic that kind of entomb the waste mass. That prevents any liquids from entering the cell. It also prevents any gases from leaving the cell. So once these final cover systems are constructed, we go in and we build these gas collection system, these gas wells throughout the landfill. And so we collect all the gas that's created from the decomposition of the waste. We currently just burn off this gas with a flare, but there is a possibility in the future to use these gases as an energy source.
Yes, that is correct. There is a possibility for sure. You all have taught me a lot today, and I am really hoping that our audience is learning as much as I am. But let's try to provide further information to our citizens. I want to ask you, this is for all of you, starting with Susan. Susan, how is the Little Rock Zoo educating the public about sustainability?
We do a lot of things to do education at the Little Rock Zoo. And one of the ways that we do that is through our education department. COVID-19 has presented a lot of challenges for us this year, and I probably speak to everyone that we've had to be innovative this year. We've launched a lot of virtual classrooms, and we've launched virtual partnerships with the Little Rock School District and with other school districts around the state this year. And we've been able to spread our conservation education message around the state through those partnerships. And when we talk about the zoo and we talk about animals, we always try to talk about conservation, and we always put in a message of action, some type of little nugget that a child or an adult can take as an action item. And oftentimes that action item is an item on sustainability, because those sustainability items are things that the individual individual can do to create a better world in their own backyard. So things like not using plastic straws, things like composting, those things that are small but make a large impact the more that each one of us does them. So those little pieces of education that we do, we weave into our education department, but we also do it here on grounds too. We're in the process right now of redoing all of our graphics on grounds to make sure that we include a conservation message in all of our graphics. And we also make sure that when our staff talk with our guests and do things like keeper chats or some of our very popular shows at our amphitheater, that we also have that action item in there about what you, the individual, can do to save the planet. I think it's very important that, you know, when we're educating people about conservation, that we have those action steps in there to talk about what you can do as an individual to help. And oftentimes, you know, it's when we talk about the conservation of wildlife and we're talking about things like how we save animals, you know, that's a very big and heavy topic, you know, for a child to think about. But when we talk about ways that you individually can do something on a very small scale, like refuse a plastic straw, then it gets to be very local. So I think there's ways that we can take it home to people by using sustainability and sustainability practices as ways to create conservation action on a very small scale, because those very small scale actions all add up to things that create a very large impact for animals in a very large scale. So that's something that we try to do, the Little Rocks do, is take those very small things and show the larger scale impact of them for animals in the wild. And then we also try to impact too the fact that everything is connected, that animals are connected to us, and that impacting animals impacts us too. That keeping animals healthy and keeping animals in the wild also impacts our agriculture. It impacts our aquaculture, and that impacts us as human beings. It's one big world that's all connected. So those little bitty acts make that larger difference.
For sure. Thank you so much, Susan. Randy, Nathan, and Reed, could you please share with us some of your ideas about how we can continue to educate our community? Let's start with you, Randy.
Yeah, so at least internally, you know, we've got a team internal on our staff that works pretty hard on education, reaching out to our customer bases and talking to them about we do what we call our waste audits. We'll go out and actually look in their dumpster and find what's going in there. How can we help that company or that small business save money on what's going to the landfill? You know, and conversely, along those same lines, you know, a lot of the companies that we deal with, they've got huge budgets related to sustainability. And so when you've got someone with a large workforce like a L'Oreal who is 100% committed to sustainability, that doesn't just translate at the office. They also take that home. You know, they're taking those processes and that thought pattern home and to see what they can do at the home and educate their families as well. You know, we've partnered a lot with Keep Little Rock Beautiful, the Arkansas Recycling Coalition, Little Rock School District, to try to get the message out about sustainability. You know, the other thing I think that's important to note is that, you know, everybody thinks, oh, I've got a cart at my house and recycling's free. But it's not free. There's a lot of big moving pieces of equipment. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into a recycling facility. And I think it's important to note that when we talk to people about recycling, it's not free. And you can move the products on the backside. But the reason why you want to do a recycling program is to keep stuff out of the landfill. So, you know, if we can help a business reduce, you know, if they're getting their dumpster dumped 4 times a week and we can get it reduced to dumping once, and that's a win. And then that win translates through that whole company, and everybody takes that home, and it helps further sustainability and what we're looking to do.
Thank you so much, Randy. Nathan, what about you?
Okay, well, we're going to continue to place our education material on the city's website and also the community centers. We're also happy to give landfill tours for about anybody for various groups to educate them on, you know, what all goes on out here and, the impact of, where all the garbage goes once they put it in their trash can that they're on the street. Other than that, we do have staff dedicated to education. They go around to the schools around the city and talk to the kids about recycling and composting.
Great, wonderful. And Reed, finally, what about you?
Thanks for asking. So I like that everybody has mentioned the school district and the kids particularly. I think if you can get kids to start taking these practices home, then it'll translate to the adults. Some of the adults, it's harder to change their behaviors, I believe. So we actually have 2 school programs, elementary garden programs, where we teach a cooking and gardening curriculum. And then this year we're opening a 75,000 square foot community composting facility on 15th and Woodrow. And it's going to have space for community workshops. So we'll do, once COVID is no longer such a concern, we'll do a series of free community workshops where we teach people to compost in their own backyards. And then we're also going to do some cooking and just show people how to responsibly, save their food so they're not wasting it. Yeah, that's mostly what we got going on in terms of education.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a very enriching conversation. Unfortunately, our time together has come to an end, but I want to thank all of you for all the great work that you do for our beautiful city.
A look around the world. This section I really like because we get to have the opportunity to see and understand what other cities are doing in regards to sustainability initiatives. And we hope that this is also a chance for you all to learn things that hopefully we can implement in our beautiful Little Rock. Today, we're going to talk again about Austin, Texas. As you know, Austin is the capital of Texas, and they are a widely organized and recognized city that it's called, or self-defined eco-friendly city. In Austin, through nonprofit organizations, sustainability groups, and local governments, there have been continuous effort to protect Austin's environment, improve the city's carbon footprint, and to make strides towards a renewable energy-based local community. One of the things that I like about Austin the most is they have a community solar initiative. And what does this mean? This means that the community solar is one example of how the cities leading American cities and worldwide in the field of clean and renewable energy. Residents of Austin who want to use solar energy but don't have access to optimal solar resources are able to invest in a community pool of solar energy. Austin's mayor said that we are realizing a greener future, and Austin Energy Community Solar Initiative shows the world how everyone in your community can support and benefit from renewable energies. I personally think that not only looking into ways that we can decrease our CO2 emissions as a city, but also ways that our city and also our families can save money through sustainable initiatives is a win-win, not only for our community, but of course for our families. All right, so now we are going to get into the sustainability tips and the eco challenge of the week. We are coming to an end, but we hope that you are learning a lot of good things with us. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few sustainability tips. I'm gonna give you a bunch of them so you have like a better idea of what you could do in the future. So for example, what if you start bringing your own reusable bags to the store? I'm sure that many of you already do that, but maybe you have not thought about it before. Can you imagine if you say no to that plastic bag at the store, how many of them will you save at the end of the year? And also, if you definitely have to use those plastic bags, I encourage you to tell the person who is putting the stuff in the bags to only bag them once. Some stores, as you know, they pack like 2 or 3 plastic bags at once, and sometimes just like 100% unnecessary, because those bags are already very stirred to begin with, so they're strong. Another thing that you can do is, now with the pandemic, a lot of us are calling for pickup or just for delivery. We encourage you to say, please don't bring me plastic fork and spoon. You probably are going to end up eating at your house or somebody else's house, and so you probably already have that stuff at home. But what is happening is that you start just piling up all these plastic forks and knives and spoons, and then at the end of the year you end up just tossing them out. So you can just say no from the beginning. And if you are already eating dining out, you can say no to the straw. You can say, can I have just a glass of water or Coke without the straw? That's another way that you can start creating some behavioral changes that are going to be positive, not only for you but also for our community. You can also buy in bulk whenever necessary. Be aware again of the double packing. And also, what about if maybe you start thinking about composting your food scraps and yard waste whenever possible? It's really easy. If you do a quick Google search, you can find that there are many websites that teach you how to do home composting. But you just make sure that you have leaves and you have greens. And also make sure that you're not composting things that you shouldn't be composting. Like, for example, like dairy fruits, like, leftover cheese or milk or butter, stuff like that. Also, oil is not a good thing to compost. But again, if you do a quick Google search, you're going to find tons of information in these regards. There are multiple ways that Little Rock residents can access the 311 service that the city provides. So one of the things that you can do is get the 311 app. Call 311. The number is 371-447. I'm going to repeat the number. The number is 371-4437. Or visit the city's website and click the 311 logo on the homepage. The 311 service covers garbage, recycling, and yard waste issues. Also, bulky item pickup requests, and they help you also reporting housing violations, dead animal pickups, such as deer, if you find something, on the highways. And it's also a good place for reporting maintenance issues in your parks or in our parks and streets. And in general, just maintenance of the public stuff that we have in the city. We recommend downloading the app. It's a great tool to have on your phone. This is also a great tool to start communicating with people in your community. One of the things that we want to challenge you is take a walk in your neighborhood and around your workplace. We invite you to bring along a garbage bag and gloves or litter grabber. Collect the trash that you see around during your walk. Throw it away where it belongs, and that is the trash can. A litter-free city has so many benefits. It's good for your health, for our environment, and for our community. So again, I invite you to walk around your neighborhood and see opportunities for you to help keep the streets clean. All right, y'all. Well, we have come to the end of the show. I want to thank all of you and our guests of today, the Sustainability Office and the commissioners of the Little Rock Sustainability Commission, for the efforts at making this project a reality. It has been a pleasure educating our community in regards to sustainability initiatives. We hope that you continue to stay engaged with us. Remember that you can find us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, through our website or our page, Sustain LR. I look forward to seeing you next time. You have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
You're listening to the Little Rock Sustainability Hour. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, get Little Rock Sustainability information by going to the Sustain Little Rock Facebook page or the Sustainability section of littlerock.gov.